300 MMA world is going to look like. Most likely focusing on the UFC, but also looking at what UFC and MMA outside of the UFC is going to look like. For example, the PFL. For example, what will this new generation now look like, considering that we are past the 300 era? Because you got to remember, these centennial marks really do mark a certain lineage or era. For example, during the 200 era, you know what was very significant was it was 2016. And as a result of that 2016 year, a very pivotal year. And by the way, let me take advantage of this beautiful scenery that we have here in Old West Sacramento, just so you guys can get a different secondary vision of what my product and content can offer, as opposed to, let's say, just talking about the kicks and the punches, of which I'm going to do anyway. But I'm going to do it in a much more entertaining fashion. So, once again, the main topic at hand: what will the post UFC 300 world look like? As we look at this wheel right here, this Ferris wheel. Now, what's significant about this? It's constantly going round and round, right? One person hops in, another person hops out. Just like the UFC in a nutshell. So why is that significant for the UFC to, let's say, have a certain era and have a certain change of the guard constantly? For one, because it freshens up everything. And then not only that, you also got to understand that you are dealing with a sport that is violent in nature, but also really leaves a lot of guys injured and shortens their career, right? So you're not going to have a long span like, let's say, you would have with, let's say, Tom Brady in football. Now, how did that even happen? How did someone like uh, this guy pull off becoming a long-time champion in ways that would probably be a little bit more impossible in the world of fighting? Well, I'll tell you, being a quarterback, it's not as strenuous as fighting, because you've got guys that can protect you, and you can go throughout a whole entire game without facing any hard physical contact. And this is the reason why Tom Brady was able to maintain his career for a very long time. Same with Michael Jordan. He's had a long career as well. But what is significant about him? Well, one thing you got to understand about Michael Jordan is that he plays a sport that really is not hard in contact by nature. And by the way, here it is, the California Railroad Museum right here, open up to the public and whatnot, right here in Old West Sacramento. So, on any regard, as I was saying, you got to understand that not every athlete in fighting is going to last a very long time. So it is very significant when a new era comes in. For example, it was Anderson Silva's way out. He really was on his way out as these new guys were coming up. Before you know it, Israel Adesanya came in 3 years later after UFC 200, in which he got beat by Daniel Cormier. He then goes on to fight Israel Adesanya by a decision, which, by the way, to be honest with you, if you really want me to be fair and objective about it, I think Israel Adesanya really held back in trying to hurt Anderson Silva, but appreciated that he was passing down the torch on him. And then the next torch after Israel Adesanya, obviously, was none other than Sean Strickland, who, by the way, is literally a wild cowboy character. And that's literally what we're looking at right here in Old West Sacramento, is nothing more than just an old cowboy scene, right? Live and direct from West Sacramento, Old Sacramento to be exact, as we are talking about MMA with you guys. So now you got to think, we are in a different era now, right? Alex Pereira just won one of the biggest fights of his life. So what is the world going to look like post Alex Pereira and his win? Is he going to go to heavyweight? There's a possibility. He's big enough. He's strong enough. He's clearly strong enough, because name a lot of light heavyweights out there that are really just laying people out like that and then staying on top. Not very many. Obviously, you see that with Rakic. So what happened with Rakic? Well, he met his limits somewhere down the line. Okay, but still, credit to him. He tried against Yuri. That's that. Again, what kind of world are we going to expect in a post 300 world? Could we perhaps see Jiri having a much better time in the 205 division if perhaps Alex Pereira decides to move up to heavyweight? And if Alex Pereira decides to move up to heavyweight, as you guys are looking at Old West Sacramento right now, I got to tell you, if that's a possibility, he's not going to come back down. He's just going to fight high up and continue his career all the way till the end of, let's say, being a heavyweight and potentially becoming the first ever three-weight world champion. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. There is no MMA channel like this that will literally show you downtown Old West Sacramento while talking about MMA. So let's continue right down to it, okay? So Jiri has a great chance of perhaps maybe dominating the 205 division if Pereira becomes successful at heavyweight. The only issue is that will these heavyweights answer his call? Now, John Jones doesn't seem to have any interest in fighting Tom Aspinall, and definitely not having any interest in fighting somebody like Alex Pereira. So, will Alex Pereira fight in the heavyweight division? Only time will tell. It's predicated on if these heavyweights are willing to go and step up to the plate, or perhaps, maybe, Alex Pereira will just fight another volunteer heavyweight as somebody that will welcome him up there. Well, what is that going to mean for the 205 division? If Alex Pereira pursues a heavyweight path post UFC 300, I'm telling you right now, they're going to strip him of his 205 world title eventually. They're going to strip him. Why? Because if he doesn't defend it, which is more than likely what is going to happen if he's going to continue the path of, let's say, trying to get another third belt, okay, they're going to have to strip him because they're going to have to continue the competitive architecture that is necessary in a 205 division if Alex Pereira decides to pursue another goal in a third division. And speaking of gold, this right here is where the old California gold rush was contributed towards. In Wild West Sacramento right here. I'm driving around for you guys as I am dropping this hot content, and I urge you to just do one thing for me, is like and subscribe as we talk about what the world looks like post UFC 300. So here it goes. One of the ways that we can look at this is, obviously, we talked about Alex Pereira. Everything predicated on whether these heavyweights are willing to take on his challenge or whether he has to take on a volunteer step-up heavyweight in order to welcome him into that division. And if he does, then guess what? He has to be stripped of the title, and as a result, he has to move on and continue his path in heavyweight, if that is a possibility. And we're going to look at the Ferris wheel as we are walking by. So that is a possibility. And who could potentially pick up the pieces at 205 if, let's say, Alex Pereira decides to move up to heavyweight? And by the way, there's a great chance that he can win. He can crack. He can definitely crack Tom Aspinall regardless of the size disadvantage. As of right now, I would give Alex Pereira the nod over Brock Lesnar if they were to get it on, which means I really give it to him for any heavyweight out there, and that's the God honest truth. There it is, the Ferris wheel right there. So that's one way of looking at this for UFC 300 post UFC 300 MMA world. Now, let's talk about Max Holloway. What is the reality of his future prediction? I'm going to tell you this with Max Holloway. Max Holloway, like Alex Pereira, is going to move up a weight class at some point. Okay? So as a result, what you have to understand with that is that you are getting a certain result in which he's going to have to move up a weight class. He can no longer stay at 145. He can't afford to stay at 145. Why? Max Holloway staying at 145 is only going to continue to drain his body. And as a result, he's going to have, let's say, maybe 5 fights as opposed to maybe 10 at 155. Now, if you are a big Max Holloway fan, what is it that you want? Answer that question. Do you want 10 fights out of Max Holloway in his career span? Or do you want 5 fights in which he has to continuously cut weight and truly drain himself, take a big cut of himself at 145, which means he will only survive within 5 fights? Or do you allow Max Holloway to fight at 155, blown up a whole lot better, being hydrated a whole lot more? Speaking of hydrate, and perform a whole lot better as a result of that. Okay, that takes confidence right there to just drink on live. You know what, guys? You got to understand something. When I shoot the videos and when I do the lives, I don't edit none of these things. People always ask me, hey, how is it that you're such a great speaker? How is it that you're able to just spit on the fly without any rehearsals, without any hesitation or anything like that? I'm going to tell you why, guys. It's called absolute confidence. And you know what? I think that Max Holloway just has to trust in his skill and know for a fact that he can take on anybody at the 155 division. That is the world that we are looking at in post UFC 300. And obviously, we have talked about the aspect of Conor McGregor in June 29th. We talked about the aspect of Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier kicking off June. And then we have Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis in August. This is the world that we're looking forward to, but I wanted to focus more specifically on Max Holloway and Alex Pereira and why their future choices are going to matter, and not only matter, really shape the top 2 divisions of the UFC, which is what? 155 and a heavyweight division. And also the 205 division, because obviously he is still the reigning champion of that weight class. Now, right now, in the heavyweight division, all we are really doing is waiting to crown Max Holloway the champion. I'm sorry, in the heavyweight division, Tom Aspinall. We are waiting for Tom Aspinall to be crowned the champion. And in 155, could Max Holloway become a 155 champion? The God, truth, honest answer is no. But he'll be very competitive. He'll give a lot of good matches, and he'll give Islam Makhachev a big money fight after Dustin Poirier. Because after all, Dustin Poirier is nothing more than a money fight. Speaking of Michael Chandler, he has his money fight, and Israel Adesanya has the biggest money fight of them all, which is why he came off as a losing champion, coming in now as a challenger, taking on the guy that has defeated the guy that has beaten him. All because that guy, Dricus du Plessis, didn't want to take the fight in the first place. So that is the type of world you are expecting in post-UFC 300. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That is all that I have for now. Obviously, it's a little bit short, but it is getting dark out here. There is no light. But that is the most that I can contribute to a world post-UFC 300. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.